India's new health minister, Dr. Harshvardhan, has said that he would like to see a change in the way that the government promotes awareness of AIDS and HIV, with more emphasis on quote-unquote promoting the integrity of the sexual relationship between husband and wife, which he said was part of our culture. He says the thrust of the AIDS campaign should not only be on the use of condoms. He says this sends the wrong message that you can have any kind of illicit sexual relationship, but as long as you're using a condom, it's fine. Just for the record, Dr. Harshvardhan, 85% of cases of HIV/AIDS are caused through unprotected sex. The debate this evening on To The Point is clearly, do we need sermons on morality, or is it condoms that we need? Is it basic preventive measures to keep this disease, HIV/AIDS, away? That's the big debate that we are following. But before we go to our panelists, let's give you the story of the day. Ignoring all the campaigns and exhausting missions that the world is undertaking to fight AIDS, our newly inducted health minister has a new prescription. Mr. Harshvardhan wants to add little morality to the whole issue and even advocates that the use of condoms to fight AIDS gives rise to immoral relationships. Here's the story.
India's successes in its fight against AIDS is not widely known, but the statistics speak for themselves. The prevalence rate for HIV fell from 0.33% in 2007 to 0.29% in 2011. And the number of new infections fell from 2.74 lakh in 2000 to just 1.16 lakh in 2011. That's why Health Minister Dr. Harshvardhan's plan to continue the fight against AIDS seemed not only ignorant of the successes, but also ignorant of the groups where the disease was most prevalent.
एक महिला और पुरुष के बीच के जो सेक्सुअल रिलेशनशिप है, उसकी जो सात्विकता और उसकी जो इंटेग्रिटी है, उसको अक्षुण्ण रखने के ऊपर भी हम ध्यान जरूर दें.
Dr. Harshvardhan's apparent attempt at moral policing the fight against the disease has already attracted criticism.
The NACO and the agencies who are working for the prevention of AIDS have not only promoted the usage of condoms, but have also stressed sexual relationship with single partners. So it is not that only condoms can be the NACO has been promoting the use of condom, also have been encouraging illicit relationship. And in fact, in the youth, the usage of condom or the propaganda has helped, I suppose, India in a long way to fight AIDS. So one should not be very medieval in the thinking.
While abstinence is certainly the surest protection against AIDS, it's hardly realistic to expect everyone to abide by it. Not just that, Dr. Harshvardhan's claim that only sexual relations within a marriage are pure has stigmatized patients with the disease. Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Joining me on To The Point, Anjali Gopalan, President of the NAS Foundation, is joining me from Delhi. Jai Narayan Vyas, leader of the BJP, is joining me from Ahmedabad. Dr. Raj Harjani will be joining me. He's a specialist on HIV/AIDS in just a bit, and that's Dr. Jaya Sridhar. She's also worked in the field of awareness of HIV/AIDS for more than 20 years. And Rahul Iswar, who's an author and educationist, is joining us on the phone line, also an activist. Let me start with you, Anjali Gopalan. Isn't it a fact that HIV/AIDS is prevalent among high-risk groups the most in India, and that awareness about condoms, about protected sex is extremely important? And wouldn't the strategy that Dr. Harshvardhan is advocating or trying to impart actually be detrimental to the whole process of awareness of this disease?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Look, if there's one thing we know, because it's over 30 years since HIV has been around, we know what works and what doesn't. And let's also understand that there are millions of people who are having sex before marriage, outside of marriage, and marriage does not mean that people are not stepping out of it. So please understand, we cannot afford to let this infection come back home. Now, whether we say that it's high-risk groups, I don't believe in such a concept. But if we say that people who are sexually active and in multi-partner relationships need to protect themselves and their partners. So talking about going back, and for God's sakes, are we now saying that what the government has done over the last many decades, it has been absolutely worthless and has not worked? Because we know it's worked. We've been able to stem the spread of the disease in our country. So why are we going back on something that has actually worked?
Mr. Jayanarayan Vyas, I hope you're hearing that. Let me give you some numbers as well. At the national level, HIV prevalence is highest among injecting drug users. That stands at 12.22%. It's followed by homosexual men, which is at 6.82%, and female sex workers at 5.92%. Now my question is, what is the point of your health minister going about changing the communication strategy, because the main people who are infected with this disease and are, as some would call them, high-risk groups, don't even fall into this new communication strategy? Isn't he slightly far removed from facts on the ground?
Well, I think what I will say that the essence of a basic communication strategy, having been the health minister for last 5 years, is that, you know, most of the people even don't know that if you eat in the same plate an HIV/AIDS fellow is eating and or drink the same glass of water which is drinking, nothing goes wrong. These drug addicts or the kind of high-risk group which you are mentioning about are the people from whom, you know, you can expect the spread. But then the reasons are multiple. You know, right from urbanization and ghettoization to the migrant laborers.
No, but Mr. Vyas, I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about what Dr. Harshvardhan has said. He has said that there should be more emphasis on promoting the integrity of sexual relationship between husband and wife, because that is our culture. Why are we getting a moral lecture when the main thing should be, you know, containing the disease, to spreading awareness among the groups that need the awareness?
I don't think it was not there earlier. You know, stick to your life partner or be loyal to your partner has been one of the theme strategies for years together. So it's not something which has come out of the blue that he is talking about. It's
no, but he's saying I want to change the communication strategy. I'm not, this has been there forever, we understand that. But he's saying I want to change the communication strategy, because he says, and I want to read this so that I don't get the quote wrong. He says that as far as the use of condoms is concerned, it increases or has increased the rise of illicit relationships. And that messaging is bad.
Well, I think this is one of the logics he might be extending, but basically I would say that the communication strategy...
as health minister, is this the kind of logic that we need?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the only logic he is extending. You know, it has to be a kind of a mixed strategy. You can't have one singular strategy to combat with this increasing menace of the HIV/AIDS. So I think this is one of the points he is trying to stress, and not necessarily that it is at the cost of excluding all other possible communication strategies or all other remedies that are available.
The question, Mr. Vyas, is should the health minister have said that he has to change his communication strategy? I want to bring in Dr. Sridhar at this point.
I think he is trying to emphasize. I think he is trying to emphasize on this point, not at the cost of excluding other strategies or excluding other points. I think this is one point on which he wants to emphasize.
Why bring in the fact that this is increasing illicit relationships? I want to bring in Dr. Sridhar at this point, and my question to you is the same, that he is saying by showing the usage of condoms, you are sending a wrong message, that you can have any kind of illicit relationship and use a condom and it's fine. Isn't this an argument that has been used by the church in the past? Isn't this an argument that is completely negating all the research and the work that has been done on the ground?
Let me say that this is a very tired old argument, and this is a sorry throwback to about 15 or 20 years ago. I think we've gone past all this. There's sufficient evidence to show that promoting condoms doesn't really equal to promoting unsafe sexual behavior. In fact, it's the precise opposite. As for changing cultural customs and increased, freedom of choice for young people in this country, for instance, or the moves to legalize certain kinds of sexual behavior which have hitherto been criminalized, I think it's part of our changing times. It's a sign of the times. And as doctors or as health personnel, one's duty, primary duty, is to save lives. So what do you want us to do? Do you want us to leave out a whole section of people who are most at risk, who are extremely vulnerable to a disease that could potentially prove fatal in the long run in the absence of management? What do you want us to do? Do you want us to eschew their care altogether? That's my question.
Okay, Dr. Rahul Ishwar, Dr. Harshvardhan also says that increasingly the moral fabric of the country is becoming thin. Do you agree with that? And do you agree with the kind of, diagnosis he has and also the cure that he's kind of trying to promote?
50 years back, in India, it was a sin to talk about sex. And 50 years later, it has almost become a sin for left liberals to talk about ethics. If somebody is speaking about ethics, moral integrity, family values, that person is regressive. If somebody is talking about goodness of the family and having ethical behavior, they are always branded bad. This kind of attitude is not good for any society. Even take a society like America, where we claim that they are more liberal. Look at their policy, AIDS policy, the ABC policy they have. The A is abstinence. Why don't you abstain from such high-risk relationships? And we are a land where we celebrate relationships. We see a person who is more than body or physiology or sex. That means there is an in-depth emotional bondage between two people. It is perfectly okay if somebody wants to practice any other kind of behavior, freedom of choice, as they call it.
Mr. Ishwar, you're relying on ABC. Let me just correct you there. As far as ABC is concerned, it is for specific groups. A, abstinence is for the youngsters, the ones who are trying to make a sexual debut. B, which is being faithful, is for those who are in marriages or monogamous relationships. And C, which is the consistent use of condoms, is for the high-risk groups or sex workers.
Exactly.
What Dr. Harshvardhan is trying to do is make one message for every group. That is what we are debating, Rahul Ishwar.
No,
the fact that it can't be the same message across, and let's not bring morality and culture into it.
But if somebody says that there should be responsible sexual behavior from youngsters or married couples or anybody for that matter, that responsible sexual behavior from a person is an idea government should promote. Why? Because society's basic unit is family, and government has a right to protect what is right for the people. The whole question of ethics cannot be shied away or sidelined. That doesn't mean
Anjali Gopalan. I want Anjali Gopalan to respond.
Culture, both should be
Rahul, calm down. Rahul, please try and understand. Just because we are talking about consistent condom use, if you're going outside of a relationship, we are not saying that family values is wrong. We are not saying that if you are in a monogamous relationship, just because we talk about condoms, people will start going out of that relationship. You know that doesn't happen, Rahul. But you also know the reality that people do step out of relationships. No, the reality is, one second, Rahul, let me finish what I'm saying. I'm saying the reality is people are stepping out of relationships. And if they are doing that, and if that is the reality, we have to make sure that a disease that is so preventable does not decimate the very culture that you're talking about. There won't be people left to propagate this wonderful culture you're talking about.
Also, I want to ask Jay Narayan Vyas at this point.
We're going berserk.
We are going berserk, says Anjali Gopalan. Mr. Jay Narayan Vyas, my other question to you is, since you have also been working for the past 5 years, we have seen that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has also done a lot of work from 2003 to 2013. Now, they've also exited the project in the country. At this time, where the country is left alone to handle this disease, should the health minister be making such statements? You're confused. Isn't he confusing issues? Isn't he taking away from the main battle, Mr. Vyas? And there is no question here of taking him out of context.
No, I would tend to agree with what Rahul was saying. You know, somewhere on the way we are confusing two things. Number one, you know, if you are being loyal is a culture, being loyal is something which prevents this, then if you are stepping out of the relationship comes. So if you are able to stay put where you should be, I think this will not happen. But should it happen, then I think I also won't say that you should shy away from using the preventives that are required to be used.
Dr. Sridhar, is this just a question of this outrage that Mr. Vyas and Rahul Ishwar seem to suggest that the left liberals have?
Not at all. I think we just need to, let me again draw your attention, remind you about the evidence that has been accumulated in the area of HIV prevention over the last 30 years from all over the world. Condoms save lives. They prevent pregnancy. They prevent the spread of sexually transmitted infections. And there are people out there who are at risk, who are vulnerable, who don't have choices other than to lead a life of vulnerability. And we need to make this life-saving device available to them. As doctors, we'd be failing in our duty if we don't do that. And the government would be failing in its duty if it neglected the lives of a huge section of people. We're talking about millions of people here. And I think it's not a question of prescribing one approach over another, or overturning the entire approach to HIV prevention strategies for the nation as a whole. In medicine, you take those medicines to those who need it for a particular problem. So here we're talking about strategies that should be tailored to fit each person's level of vulnerability. So I don't think, I agree with Dr. Harshvardhan that there needs to be some emphasis on promoting integrity within sexual partnerships. That's important, no doubt. It's agreed upon all over the world, and it's a very sound health strategy.
Right.
But that strategy may not be suitable or appropriate for a whole bunch of people who are very, very vulnerable because of the kinds of lives they
And
lead.
Rahul Ishwar,
And it's not up to the health department to be a moral policeman here.
Yes,
You
it
can't
is not
expect
up
us
to the health
change
department to be
culture
the
of an
moral
entire
policeman.
society.
That is number one. And secondly, Rahul Ishwar, this is not about outrage by left liberals and so on, the other groups that you mentioned. This is about the health minister of the country saying that he wants to change the strategy altogether. And he wants to bring the emphasis on integrity and on moral fabric and on the culture rather than what is the ground reality.
Ma'am, there are three things. I totally agree with JNR and JSG. And second, we should also remember it's a multi-pronged strategy. There is not a one-dimensional war. It's a multi-dimensional war, and we should take care of each and every aspect. And we shouldn't shy away from taking an ethical attitude. We are not saying government should be a moral policeman, but that doesn't mean government can be a nihilistic, absolutely relativistic state where government can say you can do anything in life. There is an ethical fiber to any society for that matter. But ethics cannot be shied away. And sorry to say, these left liberals have destroyed our ethical fiber in the past 25 years.
Not if they are removed from reality on the ground, Rahul Ishwar. Not if they are removed from the reality on the ground. I also have Dr. Harjani who is joining us late in the debate. So I'm going to ask you the last question, Dr. Harjani. If the government at this time, when it is solely handling the entire project across the country, changes its communication strategy, you're somebody who's worked in this field for the past 20 years. How detrimental is it for your work on the ground?
Madam, what I say from all the debate, I joined very late, but I will definitely say the left is liberal, but even then they have been taught the sex education they have been given, because sex education is the main thing that if we teach our children or our father or uncle also that if you do something wrong or you do indulge in sexual activity, you are likely to get sexually transmitted disease, and that could be AIDS. So best is sex education is to be known, and I agree with the other things also that abstinence, be faithful, and condom promotion are the best, because thing is that when we are having some control from the family, some control from the society, then we are thinking of moral and all that thing. But when we are away from the house, away from the country, like a migrant workers, then there is no control, and then there is a likely that one can acquire a STD and HIV and they indulge in the sexual activity.
Okay, Dr. Harjani, completely running out of time there.
Is the best.
Completely running out of time. To all my panelists joining us on To The Point this evening, Anjali Gopalan of the NAS Foundation, Jay Narayan Vyas of the BJP, Dr. Raj Harjani, of course, and Dr. Sridhar, and Rahul Ishwar on the phone line. Thank you so much for joining me here on To The Point. From my team and me, Mahrukh Inayat, thank you so much for watching us. We'll be back tomorrow. Stay with us.